Hello and welcome to HyzerMedia's coverage of the Disc Golf Open of Pennsylvania presented by Home Again. Thank you to our coverage sponsors Cosmic Disc Golf, D-Town Disc Golf, and Reaper Disc Supply. I'm Nathan Johnson, and today I'm joined in the booth by the #1 rated player in Pennsylvania, Dylan Horst. How's it going, Dylan?
Not too bad, Nathan. I'm excited to see the card today at Muddy Run. We're going to kick it off with first on the pad was myself, Dylan Horst. Second was Devin Frederick, a little over 1,000 rated. Chris Villa from Norristown, Pennsylvania. And then Harry Chace rounding us out from Rhode Island.
Should be a super exciting card.
Yep. So hole one, par 4 uphill, 474 feet. The main shot off the tee, all you want to do is get to where the grass is cut right around here, and then pick your gap kind of going into the green. It's just past these trees, relatively flat green, and yeah, pretty self-explanatory hole one.
Yeah, pretty straightforward hole to get us started. Most players just going to kind of blast something up into the hill. This is the first round of 4 in this year's Disc Golf Open of Pennsylvania. We'll have 2 rounds here at Muddy Run, followed by 2 rounds at Klein's Run. So plenty of disc golf to watch, plenty of exciting action, and it should be a great tournament.
Exactly. Yeah, and the conditions today were not extremely favorable. As you can tell, it's a little moist out there with a little bit of drizzle on and off throughout the day. The wind wasn't too bad, surprisingly, to start the day off, but yeah, it's going to basically stay like this for the whole day.
Yeah, kind of just one of those dreary spring days that the rain kind of comes and goes. You got to bring your umbrella, you got to bring towels because everything still gets wet, even though it's not necessarily actively raining the whole time. But you know, players they're used to it. They're going to fight through it and still try to put on a show.
Exactly. Yeah, here we have Harry Chace. Everybody else, relatively scoring positions. Everybody's in the middle on the slight upslope. So everybody so far has an angle for attack. Harry's going to try to bite off a little bit more right here.
Harry's got a good amount of power. Try to work his way probably close to the top of that hill. Looks like he's able to do so. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't really matter where you land on this hill. There's usually a couple different gaps that you can choose from. Devin's going with more of that straightforward line, catches a late tree. That'll leave him with a longer putt. But there's a couple different options depending on where you land. You might see some players take a wider forehand, but these backhand guys just like to go with the straight at it, slight hyzer gap.
Yeah, and Chris Villa showed us how it's done. Kind of getting a little sneaky through the trees, but found his way through the gap and pretty relatively easy birdie putt.
Nice shot from yourself there. Yeah, there's that forehand gap we were talking about. Just sneak something through. Wow, Harry actually got all the way to the top of the hill. That is a pretty massive drive to be able to just have a jump putt in for the birdie. We have seen some eagles on this hole before in the past. None this round, but still isn't a smash to get up there as Devin's putt comes up a little bit short. He's going to have to settle for the par.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. You want to start off the round with a birdie on this one because only being 474 feet, you could bite off a lot from the tee. And then, you know, the upshot, it can get a little squirrely, but it's definitely one that you want to get.
Yeah, it's a good momentum hole, as along with hole 2 of 2 holes you can, you know, get fairly straightforward birdies and kind of get some momentum going in your round is a nice way to start off.
Yeah, for Harry, it's a good starting hole because you can rip one and then have a nice easy jump up and bird. And then here we got hole 2, par 4, basically right back down the hill at 712 feet. You want to hit the initial gap, and again, you want to try to get as far forward as possible to make the second shot easier. The hill does slope downhill to the right, so the discs will tend to pull to the right as you turn them over down the hill, which will help you get more distance and hopefully make that second shot easier. The road is out of bounds on the top left, so kind of preventing you from just throwing a simple hyzer in, or, you know, it just makes that upshot just a tad more difficult.
Yeah, it just adds a little bit of stress, right? I mean, the really only mistake once you hit this gap off the tee for the big arms is overturning it. The road on the left, because of the slope you mentioned, is kind of hard to reach almost, unless you throw something really high. The bigger mistake is if you overturn something going down that hill from left to right, the disc doesn't really want to fade out once you get it moving to the right. So two good shots there to start off though.
Yep. Then we have Harry Chace throwing a Cloudbreaker or DD3. I don't remember exactly which, but it's one of his favorite bomber discs for obvious reasons.
Yeah, that's pretty smoked well up the fairway. He'll definitely have under 200 feet into the basket from there. Yeah, 712, but this tee shot, as you can see, is quite a ways downhill. So players are looking to bite off as Devin's phone falls out of his pocket. Players are looking to bite off quite a bit of distance off this tee shot. That's a nice tee shot there. Puts him in the open. Should be a pretty straightforward upshot.
Yeah, and then approaching the screen, it can get a little finicky on how hard you want to throw it. Just because it's going downhill so fast, you tend to have little reactions like that, where you want to make sure you get there, but you also don't want to end yourself short.
Yeah, it's hard to keep it close. The screen is pretty. There's not a lot of grass near the basket, so it's hard to. You're gonna find a lot of players either come up a little short because the grass grabs it, or they hit that hard pan and take a skip like Devin did. Chris does a nice job to keep his disc close. You might see some players throw the forehand over the road, but if you throw your drive as far as our card has here, um, this straightforward backhand is pretty much the play for most of the field.
Yeah, and it's a pretty gap going in. It's just wide open, pretty straight. So you kind of just want to almost finesse something down there and let the ground play take you there. My shot was a little short, probably about 30, 35 feet away, pretty short. And then Harry almost goes out of bounds, but barely hangs on and stays in.
Yeah, a little closer to that road than I'm sure he would have liked, but he'll have a birdie putt nonetheless as you're able to can a nice 30, 35 footer for your birdie.
Yeah, it's definitely momentum. Swinging the momentum on the right side right there. So I'm
Yeah,
going to take that confidence going into the next hole.
yeah, for sure. So here's Devin after skipping a bit long, coming back. Oh, just off the nubs, a bit high. Really good effort. Had a bit of a low ceiling there.
As Chris Villa is able to convert on the birdie, a little short, but Chris is one of the best putters in our area, so he's he's pretty solid from any range.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen Chris miss a putt when I've played with him.
Yep.
I'm sure he has, but like it feels like the guy does not miss from inside of like 50 feet. It's kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, he puts in the work. That's for sure. As Harry has probably about a 20, 25, 30 footer. Catches it on the left-hand side, but solid.
Yeah, really well done. I mean, that's what we said, right? The first two holes definitely want to get them. You, Chris, and Harry were all able to do that.
Yep, as we go into hole 3, another par 4, so we're going back up a hill. Very rocky fairway. You kind of want to hit this initial gap right here. Get as far up the hill as you possibly can and finish right. So a lot of backhand turnovers off the tee, power forehands. And then from here, you have a hyzer gap on the right-hand side where the drone's taking us, or on the left-hand side for a nice little pushing forehand hyzer.
Yeah, if you want to get really aggressive, like you said, the backhand turnover, I think, is the play. But this hole isn't quite long enough to where you need to bite off a ton of distance. As long as you're getting yourself most of the way up the hill with either a forehand or a kind of a straighter backhand, you're going to have something into the greens. So no real need to get too aggressive here. As long as you hit that gap, you put yourself in a good spot to still get the birdie.
Yep, there's just that one slanting tree right in the middle that you have to miss. It's either just before it or just behind it. And then as Chris goes just before it, which is perfect, flattens out going up the hill, he's in a really good spot.
Yeah, that's going to be perfectly. You see those logs on the ground. That's kind of perfectly lined up with that backhand hyzer gap you were talking about. It's still more of an uphill second shot, but it's fairly fairly big gap that you're going to have.
Yeah, and Harry here, not too happy with this tee shot. Early releases it. Goes a little left, hits one of the early trees. So it's going to have a pretty tough time scrambling from there. As Devin kind of finishes a little left as well, but he still gets pretty far up the hill, so might still have an opportunity for birdie.
Yeah, so Harry quite a ways back after his tee shot. Probably over 300 uphill into the pin. Puts a good move on it. Gets through clean. He'll have a long look at the birdie still.
Yeah, it was kind of rough where he initially was. He had to move a bunch of sticks around, but after he moved a bunch of them around, the dead and unattached ones, found a nice little gap, and he was very happy with that one. It was kind of sketchy.
Yeah, really nice shot from Devin there, going the back door line, which I honestly prefer playing this hole to just kind of blast it up the hill, and then you can kind of work your way towards the basket on flatter ground. Whereas Villa, he's kind of got an awkward uphill stance here. Obviously, it's not a problem for him. He's a true pro, but it can get a little tricky with the footing and the angle of the shot from over here.
Mhm.
You had
Yeah,
something similar, but
yep,
caught one of those guardians.
exactly. Yeah, it was a little. It wasn't as big of a gap as Chris had, so kind of had to try to test something and almost able to throw that little forehand in.
I was ready for it, Dylan. Honestly, every time you throw a forehand putt, I just expect it to go in nowadays, especially if the cameras are out.
We're trying.
We appreciate it. There's Harry for his long birdie luck. Pretty good effort. Misses a bit high on the uphill bid. Looks like there's a little bit of wind coming through the woods here. Not a problem for Devin though, as he cashes in for the birdie. That'll put him on the board, get him to 1 under. All these players know that Muddy Run is a very scoreable course. Pretty much every single birdie is very gettable. Distance isn't too much of a factor. So, um, yeah, these players are all looking to try to get into the double digit range, I would think.
Yep, because exactly like you said, we all think it's pretty scoreable as far as chipping it and taking your medicine on certain shots. If you could throw consistently 350 feet and place it where you want to, you're going to score very well here. You don't really need the long distance on a lot of these shots.
Yeah, for sure. I think staying clean off the tee, making sure you can make your putts, is gonna give you a good result out here.
Since 2021, Homagan Disc Golf has been committed to bringing the highest quality discs, apparel, and accessories to players on and off the course. No matter where you are, when you're on the course, you're home again.
Here we are at hole 4, par 4, 496 feet. It's one of the more technical holes on the course. Most people try to throw a nice soft turnover to land right about here, or a nice forehand, and then you have another kind of technical gap to try to maneuver through, whether it be forehand or backhand. It seems like off the tee, it's very hard to land in your very specific landing zone. So most of the time, it always feels like a scramble second shot.
Yeah, ideally you'd want to place it right on the silver tee pad, which is about 250 feet in front of and to the right of the gold tee. Villa, this kind of goes a little too straight. I'm sure he would want that a little more finishing to the right side of the fairway to kind of open up the gap. You can actually get aggressive here. There's kind of a straight backhand flip up tight turnover line that you could theoretically get a putt for the eagle, but it is a very ambitious gap to go for.
Yeah, because it's just so tough to kind of make sure you're hitting that gap. The gap itself for the hyper aggressive shot is probably, I don't know, 5 foot wide the whole way. So
Yeah.
trying to hit that for 400 plus, it's pretty tough.
Yeah,
Um,
especially too in the first round of a 4 round tournament. Like nobody's trying to get that aggressive. If you can just chip that forehand, like you said, the forehand gap's a lot bigger. It sets you up in pretty good position for the birdie, and you're not going to take a big number. So
yep. And then mine, unfortunately, kicked one of the trees to the left. It didn't necessarily get that fade out that I was kind of hoping for. And then Harry kind of did the same thing, where it's just a little too straight, wanted a little more turn out of it just so it would hit this gap.
yeah, so he's left with a kind of a turnover forehand here in towards the green, probably pushing closer to 300 feet. Really tough shot to execute. Kind of just overturns it a little bit there, comes up short. And looks like you've got kind of the same shape.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a matter of trying to get the touch right. It was such a hard shot to do. There was a little bit of wind off the right. I got fortunate with the ground play. Instead of cut rolling, it skipped off one of the rocks and kind of maneuvered its way forward. So worked out.
Yeah, pretty favorable result. Chris is over here on the left side where it is quite a bit tighter. There's a bunch of tiny little gaps, and he's able to hit one of them pretty well, get a good amount of forward progress, but catches something late, so that'll leave him probably in deep circle two for his birdie. Best driver
Yep.
of the group is Devin, but he's still even a bit pinched off on the left-hand side.
Yeah, he's able to find a little gap to the right, kind of sneak his way up there. With Villa's shot, I actually watched a shot after he hit the very last tree on the way to the basket. So it was pretty unfortunate. I thought he cured his shot, and there was just one to miss at the very end.
Yeah, tough break. Harry's just going to lay out there from about 70. Villa likes to give these a little bid, though. Probably somewhere around deep circle two. Didn't quite didn't quite hit it right out of the hand. Yeah, it looks like there is a little bit of wind. Hole 16's fairway is to the right of this hole, and it's pretty open, so it does get quite a bit windy. It's a good effort from you as well. Hits the cage there for birdie.
Yeah, I mean, where our drives were, or at least the three of us, we were in positions where we were hoping for par at worst. So it's nice that we all kind of got up and down. Devin was in the perfect spot, or at least one of the better spots to kind of score. So he was just able to throw a nice, easy hyzer for the bird.
Yeah, nicely done. Yeah, this is a hole that big numbers can come in quick. If you're not clean off the tee, if you get into trouble on that left side, it can be really tough to keep progressing down the fairway. Sometimes you might even need to pitch out. So yeah, a good job of all of you to just kind of keep making forward progress, never really get into too much danger, and take the pretty stress-free par.
As we're coming to hole five, par three, 300 foot. It's a nice little pushing hyzer shot. So for right-handed backhand players, they're trying to throw a backhand on a slight hyzer that pops up the straight, land soft on the ground because the ground can be a little fast once you get by the basket. Or a lefty would try to throw a hyzer flip that just kind of holds that anhyzer the whole way.
This is honestly one of my favorite holes on the course. Like, this is a shot that pretty much every player needs to have in their bag, is that 300-foot, pretty straight mid-range that just kind of moves a little bit to the left, just kind of stays on a little bit of hyzer the whole time. It's a lot easier said than done. The top pros make it look so easy, but as you can see, Chris kind of pulls his there. Devin went a little bit deep. It's one of those holes that you should get every time, but again, a lot tougher to execute when you're out there in person.
Exactly. Yeah, and also we still had the wind from right to left. So us trying to trust that hyzer to push straight was tough because, as soon as you expose the plate, it'll just kind of keep cruising to the left. But if you turn it over into the wind, it's just going to drop and kind of hold there. My shot kind of got a little sneaky through the left-hand side and it kept skipping. I think it ended up long on this one, probably about circle's edge, maybe a little longer.
Yeah, especially with that wind, like you said, it's hard to keep the disc straight when the wind wants to push it over to the left. So pretty common result is what you got there. I think Harry's going with his Sky God here. Comes up a little, gets some pretty good ground play to give him a putt.
Yeah, then Villa here having to do a little patent pending, but Villa is one of the better throwers, the short game throwers in our area, and most likely in the game, at least in the Northeast. Those shots he just eats for breakfast.
Yeah, so this is kind of what you get if you go deep left. There's these couple trees that create a pretty low ceiling, and if you go past them, you almost don't really have a putt. Looks like you're going to line up another forehand bid at it. Pretty good effort, had the height, but again, like we said, that ceiling is pretty tough.
Devin just unfortunate, just on the left-hand side of the chains. I think these were Mach 7s, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they're either 5s or 7s, but a little light on the chain, so you got to make sure you put it on the pole if you want them to stick. You don't usually get a lot of those left side catches on these baskets.
Yeah, and then Harry about 20 feet for birdie, able to convert high and right. Perfect.
Yeah, that's textbook how you want to play the hole. Just take a nice straight putter, rip it on hyzer, let it drift a little bit to the left, but yeah, like we said, textbook.
And I do agree with you. This is probably one of my favorite holes on the course, especially when you hit the gap the way you want it to. It's just so nice to watch it fly.
for sure.
Then here we are at hole 6, par 3, 398 feet. We're playing downhill, probably about 30, 40 feet. So it's, in a way, the same type of shot as on the last hole, but instead of finishing left, you almost just want to finish as straight as possible. There's usually wind gusts that come through here. It's a wind tunnel every once in a while. As Harry, unfortunately, grip locks it a little bit to the right, just probably a little bit of the moisture.
If I had a nickel for every time I've hit that tree that Harry just hit, I would have many nickels. That is like the exact tree that you need to miss and you're home free. But unfortunately, Harry pulls it a little bit, finds it. Yeah, you could probably throw the same disc you threw on the last hole. This one, even though it is, oh, as Chris just barely misses it, even though it's 398, it's quite a ways downhill. So kind of just throw that straight mid-range or putter, just let it glide down the hill, and super fun shot to throw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like try to find your straightest disc. So right here, I'm throwing the same disc as I did on the last hole, basically trying to do the same thing, hit it a little harder. Unfortunately, it was a little soft and a little low, but the flight was good. Just ended up probably like 50, 60 feet short.
Yeah, you hit the gap. That's all you can really ask for on this one. It's tough to hit the angle and the height exactly right. You find a lot of players, the common miss is to kind of drift left down the hill if you throw it a little too high or a little too much hyzer. This comes out a little low for Devin, so it kind of just finds the ground a little early, but
yeah, this is another one that as soon as you walk up to, it's pretty. So you wanna throw it hard, you want to get it there, but sometimes the brain just gets in the way of what your body wants to do. And
yeah,
Harry here with a pretty good upshot, a little deep, so it'll be a nice tester putt, but pretty close for par.
yeah, this hole is definitely a bonus birdie, by any means, and that gap off the tee is more intimidating than it looks on camera.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like you're coming up about 40 short or so. Have this longer look for the birdie. Line was good, just a bit low. Catches the pole.
Yeah, a little timid. It's kind of like a downhill putt. I think Chris here was like slightly uphill since he was down on the left looking from the tee. This ends up a little short.
Yep, so now Harry's comebacker for his par. 25, 30 feet or so. And he stripes it. Really nice putt. You definitely don't want to be taking bogeys out here at Muddy Run. Like we said, players are looking to get into the double digits with a good round, and bogeys are just they can come up quick. If you struggle off the tee, you can start moving in the wrong direction. So keeping clean is paramount, and giving yourself as many birdie looks as possible is really the way to keep yourself in the mix in this tournament.
Here we are at hole 7, par 3, 413 feet. The tee shot plays slightly uphill, so you're not able to see exactly where the basket is. But this tree that we're approaching right now on the right is kind of our gauge to figure out how close we actually are to the basket. So usually it's some people try to go either just in front to kind of hyzer out through, or throw a nice stall hyzer shot around it, and then kind of crash in from the backside. Since it's only about circle's edge away from the basket, trying to hit that tree isn't the worst thing.
Yeah, it's a pretty common landing zone. You'll see just right underneath that tree for most players. Harry kind of flips his up a little bit too much, goes a bit wide. It does take a significant amount of power to be able to throw that line that Harry is going for, the wider spike hyzer. I think most players don't quite have enough juice, as you see, and they'll try to go a little more straight at it, kind of like Chris is lining up here, because it's kind of a little bit uphill off the tee, and it's just at 413, it's a pretty long hole.
Yeah, not too many people have that 400-foot hyzer, or at least the pushing hyzer. So yeah, exactly like you said. And also, as soon as you flip it over just a little bit, that hill's going to want to pull it down to the right. So it fading back is going to be pretty tough.
Oh, a nice little tree direction for you. That saved you about a 25-foot putt, and now you have the park job. Not a bad break.
Not at all. I was wondering how it got there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one when you come in front of the tree like your drive did, typically you're landing at right around that other tree that you hit and ended up getting that good break, which is about 25 feet away, which is still a great tee shot, but you'll definitely take the park job if you can get it.
For sure. Good little bit from Harry. Nice little forehand tactic approach. Easy par for him. For not being in position, that's fine.
Yeah, so Devin ended up a little bit down the hill. This is going to be an uphill bid for his birdie. Just didn't quite commit there. Chris, maybe about 10 feet closer than Devin was from 40 or so.
A little right on the effort, but yeah, I mean, he's giving it good bids. It's coming in chain high, just a little bit off, but Bill is usually one of the better players, so he can usually try to figure out what's going on and fix it pretty quickly.
Yeah, and giving himself enough of those chances, eventually they're going to start to fall.
Yeah, it was a good par from Harry too. Being out of position, being able to run it, and then still getting the par. So that's it. It was nice where he was because he was down on the hill, so his semi-aggressive upshot, didn't really hurt him that much.
Nice cleanup there from Villa. Grab himself the par and move on.
Devin to
And
round
Devin
us
as
out.
well.
Yeah. Hole 8, par 4, 747 feet. To attack the hole, you're looking for as much distance as you could possibly get, pushing the right-hand side. If you're off to the left, it's hard because it gets pretty nasty in there, and then you have to kind of craft your shots. My shot, unfortunately, didn't turn enough, so I'm going to have to get creative on my second shot, trying to go either through the trees or accept the pitch out for par.
Yeah, like you said, there's plenty of space over here on the right-hand side to just kind of throw it along the road, bite off as much distance as possible, and then you can kind of go wide hyzer like the drone flew in towards the basket. The only mistake is that just sawing it off. There's Harry doing kind of what we said, just blasting it nice and wide. I think the top distance players can probably get to that gap that we see when you get in towards the basket, but I just don't know if it's really worth trying to cut it off because, if you come up a little short, come out a little nose up, it really pinches you off, like you said.
Exactly. And since there's really no out of bounds on this hole, except we'll say natural OB off to the left, it's easy to pretty much throw kind of what Chris is doing, just throw out right as far as possible. And then in a way, almost throw the same exact shot coming in. Because you can avoid basically every single tree that's in the fairway and, give yourself an opportunity for birdie.
Yeah, and it's almost nice kind of being in that 300 to 350 foot range in towards the basket because it's easy to go long on this upshot. It can kind of get touchy if you try to bite off too much distance off the tee, and just being able to blast a really wide hyzer around everything is kind of a nice stress-free upshot to try to give yourself a look.
Here we are with Chris trying to go out and around this last tree. Filters its way through, takes a pretty big skip. And I think he still has an opportunity, but I think it's a little farther than he wants.
Yeah, probably a little more ground play than he expected, especially with this. This grass has gotten pretty long, and with the rain, it can kind of be a little unpredictable as to how much ground play you're going to get. Yeah, so Devin kind of has to go for more of the inside line to the left of that tree that Chris went around. And when you have to hit a gap from that far away, it's not a guarantee. So Unfortunately, he gets caught up.
Yeah, Harry being far enough off the tee, can throw the nice little Sky God hyzer shot, lands by the basket, and takes a pretty big skip, but I think he's still an opportunity or still has an opportunity for birdie.
Looks like you're going to try to go through the woods here. There aren't really any gaps. See, looks like he caught something. Yeah, there aren't really any true gaps through there. It's kind of a poke and pray situation, find yourself a line and just commit to it and hope you bite off most of the distance.
Yeah, the first gap was probably about 8 to 10 feet wide. I just kind of early released it right into one of the trees that you can't hit. And this is a great angle of kind of what I had left. It was a lot tighter of a gap, so had to
Yeah.
focus a little more.
Yeah, really well executed to hit that one and be able to save that par. That's yeah, early left on this hole is another one of those spots where a big number can come up quick if you're not careful, just because of how thick it is in there. So really nice job of you to get out, grab the par. Because Harry, that we can see how far his upshot did skip after hitting pretty close to the basket. It just shows you how much distance control really is important out here on some of these upshots, as Chris looked like he leaked quite a bit long as well and wasn't able to connect on that 40 or so footer for his birdie.
Yeah, and the green here, as you could tell, there are certain spots that, might just be a little unlucky. You can see a bunch of dirt spots here, but then there are patches with tall grass. So even just a little farther or a little shorter, as unfortunate as it is, but there is one thing you can control, which is the speed control. So sometimes you don't want to bank on the tall grass, but sometimes you're hoping for the best.
Yep. Yeah. Anytime you can throw a slower disc into the green is always going to, give you an advantage in terms of eliminating that luck factor that you talked about and try to, control as much of it as you can yourself.
Hole 9, par 3, 295 feet. Playing slightly uphill, so the elevation's not too bad. We have a hanging branch that hangs over the front, which makes the straight at it shot just a little more difficult just because it's a low ceiling. The two options are usually a low screamer, something pretty fast or thrown pretty hard, dead straight, just to get below the branch, or a huge hyzer around the right-hand side, either right-hand backhand hyzer or forehand lefty hyzer.
Yeah, you elect for that same putter you've been throwing on a couple holes straight at it. Really nice job to hit that gap. I think we're going to see a lot more wide hyzers on this day because of the rain. That branch that normally is pretty manageable to miss is just hanging a little bit lower than it usually is. So Harry, he likes that wide hyzer that I was talking about. Gets a little bit of ground play, but it's not going to hurt him at all as it stays pretty close. That's a nice shot.
Yeah, Chris going for the same disc he used as his upshot on the last hole. I think it's Enforcer, with what I remember. Pretty stable, just trying to pull it out right and then have the disc's natural stability finish left with a little bit of ground play.
Yep, that's nicely done. Leaves it a little wide. Doesn't quite get the ground play I'm sure he expected, but it's still only about 20 feet from the basket. It's pretty well done. Looks like Devin's going for the hyzer flip straight at it. Fading out a little bit, but checks up pretty close. So we got four pretty reasonable birdie putts here on the 9th after we saw some struggles on hole 8.
Yeah, this is one where, 3/4 of the way up the fairway, there's nothing in the way. So it's just kind of filter your way through the trees as you get closer to the basket. It was funny. As soon as we were walking up to the shot, I totally forgot about the hyzer. And after everybody threw it, I made sure to let them know that I wish they would have went first because I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty open going for that backdoor hyzer. Nice as you hit a nice putt for your birdie. Well, the good news is that you'll have another chance in the afternoon to throw the backdoor hyzer and maybe still grab the birdie either way.
Yeah, stay tuned.
So here's Harry now. A couple birdie putts left to round out this star frame. Pretty solid front nines all around. I mean, everybody's under par. We got a couple at 4. Actually, 3 players will be at 4 after Chris's birdie putt, and Devin at 2 under. I like to say, and on these 4-round tournaments, you can't win the tournament on the first day, but you can definitely lose it. And so far, none of these guys have lost the tournament so far.
Yeah, I mean, Devin started off a little slow. The rest of us started off, hitting a couple of the initial birdies. But Devin's looking to build momentum. And then as the rest of us are finishing this round, it's going to get a little tough on the back nine. Different style of golf on a couple of the holes, but it'll be a good time.
For sure. So make sure to stick around. Thank you to the Norse Gods and the Patreon family for supporting this coverage. We'll have the back nine coming right up.